Tim, thank you so much for joining me. It is finally week 1 of the regular season. The Lions have their 53-man roster set. It's a pretty exciting time of year.
Yeah, it's here finally. So much speculation for so long, and all the training camp live shows we did kind of building up to this moment. It's good to have real football. They're game planning. We got the 53-man roster. The practice squad is set. Let's play football.
We knew that the 53-man roster was coming out on Saturday, but what we didn't expect was the Lions signing quite a big name over the weekend. Adrian Peterson joins the Lions running back room. What was your reaction to that move?
Well, I think it's a good move. Obviously, AP was released by the Washington football team late last week, and it just makes sense. Especially with some of the injuries that the Lions had, at the running back position, and especially, with a power back like Bo Scarborough missing a lot of training camp. I mean, that's the same kind of mold. Power back can get you tough yards, and so Kerryon Johnson and DeAndre Swift obviously are 3-down type players. Will give you something in the passing game. And with Bo Scarborough going on IR now, I think AP just steps in and he fills a role with this team. He's a power back. He's been doing it for a long, long time. Look, I think he's 5th in the league in rushing. It just fits all the way around. It's a good mix. Familiarity, being back in the NFC North. Obviously spent so much time with the Vikings. Familiar with Ford Field. So, I just think it fits all the way around.
All right, going back to that 53-man roster that came out over the weekend. When you saw that roster come out, what was the biggest thing that jumped out to you?
Well, I think it was kind of expected, but they're a little heavy at wide receiver. They're carrying 6 wide receivers. I can't remember the last time they did that. But, when you look at what Jamal Agnew and Hall and Quintez Cephas, bring, I thought they were productive all through camp. And so, that's a really deep wide receiver core. I think all 3 of those guys deserve to be on it. Obviously with Agnew making the switch from cornerback, he's also your main return guy too. So it fits there as well. So that was a little bit surprising, just the numbers wise, but not really the skill set deserving to be on the 53-man roster. I think we all kind of figured that's the way it was heading toward camp. A little heavy linebacker, but that doesn't surprise me again. Matt Patricia's always talked about the importance of that position, being kind of the glue to the guys up front and the back end. And, with this multiple defense that they want to run in Detroit, it's important to have, not only the numbers, but guys that bring a lot of different skill sets. You saw Reggie Ragland, Jamie Collins Sr., Jelani Tavai. I mean, all those guys played inside and outside. So there's a lot of different options there. And if you're going to be a multiple defense, you've got to have versatile linebackers that can play a lot. So the Lions kept 7.
Another thing that stuck out to me was the decisions that the Lions made at offensive line. Obviously, after the weekend, they did bring back one of those guys that they cut over the weekend. That was Oday Aboushi. But the guys that they released on offensive line, they did release Kenny Wiggins and Bo Benshaw, both who return on the practice squad. But I found that position interesting as well.
Yeah, interesting, but you had to make room for the 2 rookies, Jonah Jackson and Logan Stenberg. Obviously, I think Stenberg's still a developing kind of guy. I think he could be a reserve guy. We'll see if he's active on game day. I think that'll be an interesting decision for the team. But when you're going to keep 2 rookies on and Jonah Jackson's going to start at right guard, you've got to make a decision on a veteran guy. I think that's where Wiggins and Aboushi and even Bo Benshaw kind of lost out to a numbers game there. But those guys are back on the practice squad, and we talked about the practice squad rules and stuff like that. In I think our last training camp live show, it can be quick. You can put those guys up 90 minutes before game day, and so I think it's good to have a few of those guys on the practice squad. They're plug and play right away. They've been through it. They know the scheme. If something happens, you've got a guy like Wiggins, Benshaw, boom, that can come right from the practice squad, and obviously Oday Aboushi, on the roster. So yeah, look, they've got depth on the interior offensive line. I think maybe the other question mark or questionable, or the thing that was questionable to me was just the going with 2 quarterbacks. Now it worked out where David Blau was able to come back and be on the practice squad. But I thought it was interesting to go with 2 quarterbacks right away, just with the climate that we're in with COVID and everything else. But it was good to see David clear waivers and be back on the practice squad. So you've got 3 quarterbacks, which I think is important.
Yeah, you mentioned it. The 16-man practice squad that the teams have now is huge for them. We saw so many teams bringing back guys that they already had in camp. For the Lions, that was certainly the case. One of the other position battles that was won and decided with the roster was the punter position. Jack Fox wins that punter position, but the Lions did bring back Aaron Siposs as well as Steve Wortell at the long snapper position onto the practice squad. So that is interesting as well, that they have some flexibility with their special teams on their practice squad.
Yeah, and it's smart. And again, it's like we talked about with the quarterback position, just the climate that they're in. If something does happen to your punter Thursday, Friday, these are new schemes with Braden Coombs. And so you want a guy with some familiarity there. So, Aaron Supposed can jump right in, be your punter on Sunday. Same thing with Wortell, can be your snapper. They all went through camp. And so, like you mentioned, it was kind of a weird claiming period. Usually we see maybe 50 claims in a normal year. I think there were 17.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, there wasn't the preseason for other teams to evaluate your guys. I think a lot of teams just went with what they knew. Certainly that was the case with the Lions. All those guys were with them, were part of their cuts, were with them in training camp. So I think you just saw that teams really wanted to have guys know their schemes, can plug and play if something happens. It was definitely a strange weekend without all the different moving parts and me trying to have to Google who's this guy and what did he do. I already knew who everybody was on the practice squad, which was good for me, but it was strange from an NFL perspective.
Definitely. One guy who did not clear waivers and did not return on the practice squad was draft pick Jason Huntley. He played a really big part in camp, but the Lions did not bring him back on the practice squad because he was claimed off of waivers. But of course, the Adrian Peterson news plays into who the Lions have a running back now.
I think, Bob Quinn in the front office is probably a little bit disappointed with that. I know it was a numbers game there, and you probably knew Bo was heading this way, but you had to get him on the roster to put him on IR. And, they love where Ty Johnson, the speed and where he's developing. He came on late last year, and it was just a numbers game. I agree with you. I thought Huntley had a terrific training camp, and I think he gives you something certainly in the passing game as well. And I think the fact that he was claimed just goes to show that there were other teams out there that thought pretty highly of him, that were probably ready to select him, later in the draft. And, I wish him all the best, but I think that's one, the Lions would have probably, hoped that he cleared waivers, be on their practice squad, because I think they did like him, and I think he showed something.
Well, Tim, that just about covers roster cuts. That means we've moved on to the regular season and we can start previewing Lions versus Bears in week 1. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, Tori.